The Avro, Canada's Aerospace Dream by Peyton. The CF-105 Avro was a supersonic interceptor developed by Avro Canada. The project took place from 1953 to 1959. Avro is a British aerospace company that moved to Canada after the war effort. Avro has made planes such as the Lancaster, CF-100 Canuck, C-102 jetliner, CF-103, Avro Vulcan, supersonic Avrodynes, and the Avro car. The Avro was made because capitalist West, led by the USA, and communist East, dominated by Russia, were clashing. And since Canada was part of capitalist West, we wanted to protect our skies from Russian Bear bombers. In the beginning, Canada bought $100 million worth of F-86 Sabres that didn't meet Canadian interceptor criteria. Soon, the government asked Avro to focus on making more CF-100 Canucks instead of the interceptor, but they continued to work on it as well as submitting plans for the CF-104 by 1952, and then final plans for the CF-105 in early 1953. During this time, the RCAF issued requirements for a supersonic all-weather interceptor aircraft. The RCAF requirements demanded a two-person, twin-engine interceptor with a combat radius of action of 2,775 kilometers. They wanted a combat speed of Mach 1.5 and an altitude of 50,000 feet. They used a unique strategy to test the Avro called the Crook-Craigie plan, in which they used test models instead of full-scale prototypes. Avro used techniques like flying 1/8 scale models on rockets, testing models in wind tunnels, mounting cockpit mock-ups on trucks, and using full-scale wooden models to teach engineering and production crews. 20,000 employees helped in manufacturing the Avro. It took 38,000 parts and 17.75 kilometers of wiring in total. The Avro was made in a systematic sequence from the wing base to the engine placement. The Avro used two engines. For the Mark I, it used two Pratt & Whitney turbojets. Supposedly, the Mark II was going to use the Orenda PS-13 Iroquois. Orenda and Avro were owned by the same company. The specifications for the Avro were wingspan 15 meters, length 23.47 meters, height 6.4 meters, weight 19,940 pounds, crew 2, max speed Mach 1.96, range 2,108.2 kilometers, surface ceiling 22,860 meters. The Avro Mk1 was first out of the shop on October 4, 1957, the same day the Silver Dart was flown 50 years previous. There was 11,000 people from various organizations at the rollout. RL-201 took its maiden flight on Tuesday, March 25th. The flight went great. Jan Zurakowski flew the Avro all the way up to 11,000 feet, where the flight characteristics were analyzed. Jan Zurakowski was born in Rizawaca, Russia in 1914. He was well known for his impressive test pilot career. He fought in World War II as a Polish pilot and immigrated to Canada in 1952, where he started his career as a test pilot for Avro. 1958 was a crucial year of testing for the Avro. The first phase of testing started on April 1st. Just a day later, on April 2nd, the Avro goes supersonic for the first time. On the 18th of April, it goes Mach 1.52 at 14,935 meters. A routine test flight conducted by Jan Zurakowski on June 11th ended in a collapsed landing gear due to an unfinished rotation on the left wheel. By August 4th, RL-202 flies for the first time, and on September 22nd, the RL-203 flies for the first time. Just a month later, on October 27th, the RL-204 flies for the first time. On November 11th, Spud Pataki flew the Arrow at Mach 1.96, and on January 11th, the RL-205 was flown for the first time. Next in store for the Arrow was 3 variants designed by the Aero Project Research Group. They had plans to improve mission radius, speed, and invent an anti-intercontinental ballistic missile platform. On February 20th, 1959, Black Friday was the day Prime Minister Diefenbaker canceled the Avro Arrow and decided the 6 prototypes were to be scrapped, leaving 14,000 Avro and Orenda employees out of work by 4 p.m. that very day. Where did all the Avro employees go? There was one simple theory. The Canadians got America to the moon. It is said that Avro's brightest minds were offered jobs at NASA, and they helped with the Gemini and Apollo programs. It is thought that the Arrow did not enter combat for the RCAF due to the purchase of the bomb-arc missiles, the fear that Canada would not be able to harbor such advanced technology safely, and knowing that Russia would be the only country that would buy the Arrow. Following Black Friday, 36 Arrows were disposed of. All design records were burned, and by July 22nd, the RCAF officially disowned the Arrow. The project was over. In my opinion, the destruction of the Arrow was the wrong decision. First, in 1969, they had already spent $260 million on the project. Adjusted to inflation today, that is about $1.97 billion. So why waste all the money already spent? Boeing had convinced Canadian officials that if they buy the bomb-arc missile, they would never need a plane again, though this is not even true today. If Avro was able to continue with the Arrow program, they might have succeeded in plans for the Arrow Mk4, which could have been effective against the intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. One thing I always ask myself is, what about the workers that were not employed by NASA? During the time of the Arrow, Avro fueled the economy like a rock star, and the Canadian aerospace industry was aspiring to become something more. I believe that the cancellation of the Arrow destroyed the Canadian aerospace industry, and I have made it my life mission to change that. The Arrow legacy is being continued by museums across Canada containing pieces of the Arrow, documentaries and movies about the story of the Arrow, and most recently, Raise the Arrow project has found a test model of the Avro Arrow at the bottom of Lake Ontario. Also, 2 models of the Arrow are being created, one in the Canadian Air and Space Museum, and one 60% scale flying model in the Avro Museum in Calgary. In 2006, a full-size scale replica was built in Cassim until Cassim shut down in 2011, when in 2013 the replica of RL-203 was moved to Pearson Airport, Toronto, Alberta. Currently, the mock-up is rotting in its hangar, but John Tory, Mayor of Toronto, says that he is going to make his best efforts to restore the replica and display it where it can be seen by the public. What is the Arrow 2 project? The Avro Museum is conducting an ambitious project to make a 60% scale model of the Arrow that actually flies. On March 23, 2005, Avro Museum approved the budget for the Arrow 2, and since then, skilled employees have been working to make the dream become a reality. At this point, the Arrow 2 has a full skeleton, and engines are being added. Super Arrows are handcrafted by Beaverworks. Super Arrows are Arrow base models that portray the Arrow as a supersonic, stealth, and 6th-generation fighter. What kind of test model did the Raise the Arrow project find? On August 13, 2018, an early 1/8 free flight scale model was found at the bottom of Lake Ontario in a rocky area. The model was found by the Raise the Arrow project, headed by John Burnowski and John Barrett. Raise the Arrow is on search for these models, and they have finally found one, which is an early model of the Avro design. The Avro Arrow is my favorite plane. Me, being Canadian, I feel a connection towards the Arrow. Being an aerospace fanatic, it makes me feel like I must honor it somehow. I have made it my life goal to revive Canada's aerospace industry, and I believe Avro was the last inspirational Canadian company that really made an imprint in true Canadian accomplishment. In the future, I plan to have a company called Infinite Aerospace, a company that will design and launch rockets on Canadian soil. Avro is my inspiration, and I hope that years after the demise, I can help keep the legacy going. My grand godfather is the president of the Abbotsford International Air Show and an ex-fighter pilot for the RCAF. I love the Arrow because it's Canadian made. I also love that it was made by Avro Canada, my favorite company. I think it is the greatest Canadian aerospace accomplishment ever. The Arrow's slick body and delta wings seem unique even today. Enjoy these last pictures of my Lego Avro Arrow compared to the official photograph. Thanks for listening!